Hi there, my name is Bob Hartman. I'm running for first selectman of Guilford. I'd like to invite you to come out and vote for me at the primary on September the 12th. I'm here today, pleased to be joined by Sue Renner and by Charles Haverda, who are running as selectmen alongside me on our slate. I'll tell you a bit about myself, and then I'll ask them to introduce themselves, and we'll talk about a couple of issues for a moment or two so you can get to know us a little bit better. You may know that I was born and raised in town. I'm a product of the Guilford school system. I graduated from Guilford High School in 1975, and then I went down the road to Connecticut College, where I graduated in 1979, where I studied government and economics. I went into banking after that. I was on the credit side as a credit analyst. I went into bonds and lending. It took me overseas. I lived in London for a while. Couldn't wait to get back to Guilford. Of course, we spent every summer here, and I was able to get back quite often. I kept in touch all the while. I loved growing up in Guilford, and I loved growing up in a family that was very involved in town. Of course, my dad was very busy in town affairs and civic affairs, so I grew up with that atmosphere around me. And it just makes perfect sense that when we returned to town, where I took over our family business, to rebuild it with my wife Laura, that I got involved. It's just a brilliant way to be in the community. So I'm the board member of the Community Fund. I'm a corporator for the Guilford Foundation. I'm president of Rotary. I'm a friend of the Guilford Youth Mentoring, and I'm on the town pension committee. I think it's the best town pension committee in Connecticut. I look forward to being first selectman because it's a job of management. It's just not about employing my financial skills. It's a relationship job. It's about management. We've got 37 different volunteer agencies, boards, and commissions in town, which I think is brilliant. And it's about keeping everybody on the same page, keeping government open and transparent, and your access to all of us on the same level all the time. We're facing some issues, but we'll get to that really after. I think it'd be nice to hear from Sue and Charles. I'm so honored to have them on our slate. I look forward to working with them. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon. My name is Charles Haverda. I am presently a member of the Board of Selectmen. I feel like the old guy here at the table. I've been in town since 1972 when I met and married my wife, Marlene. She was a second grade teacher, just recently retired up at Melissa Jones. My two boys were educated throughout the Guilford school system. Both have advanced degrees at this point. And I personally, I learned my lesson about, you don't get to retire until you find your replacement. And I'm so enthusiastic about this slate that we've put together because we have Sue with all of her experience on the Board of Ed, myself, 8 years on the Board of Selectmen. It looks like I'm going to be the only incumbent running on either party this year, and hopefully I can bring my experience both on the Board of Selectmen, on the other committees I've been involved in town over the years, planning and zoning, charter revision, economic development. I hope I can bring all of that experience to bear. Needless to say, right now, because the Board of Ed budget is such a big part, something like 2/3 of our town budget, having Sue aboard is really going to be invaluable. Everybody reads the papers. We know what all the commotion is now about cuts and that type of thing, and tough decisions are going to have to be made, and it's going to take cooperation and discussion and figure out the best way for all of the taxpayers to appreciate what we offer as a community. Sue, I don't want to take over the camera here.
No, that's fine. My name is Sue Renner. I grew up here in town as Sue Koch, graduated from Guilford High School in 1978, so I was a few years behind you.
That's right.
We actually didn't know each other then, but we recently had a conversation about being in Guilford Lake School, both of us.
That's right.
As little ones. I'd like to think of myself as sort of the boring candidate. I've had the same job for the past 23 years. I'm the treasurer of American Cruise Lines. I've had the same husband for going on 30 years. I like to refer to him as my first husband, Phil. But I've lived in my home on Norton Town Road for 28 years now. I'm completing my 2 terms on the Board of Education. So I've served on the Board of Ed for 8 years, and one of the most eye-opening and gratifying aspects of having served on that board is that I have seen the town working together. That's not common in towns. I don't know if it's just Connecticut or across the country, but there's often a fight between the board, the education side and the town side, so to speak. We're all competing for the same dollars, but you do not see that in Guilford. And there's a huge level of cooperation among all the boards, the Board of Finance, Board of Ed, Board of Selectmen. For example, in our budget process, we meet in December. We meet up front to go through some of the assumptions, the values, the things we hope to accomplish with our budget. We meet again a few months later. There are no surprises. Everyone's on the same page. And I think that's one of the things that really makes this town work well.
I've got to ask you, why Guilford spends the average amount in Connecticut per student, about $16,000. Some towns spend up to $5,000 more, some $5,000 less, and yet in the league tables we are at the top, very near the top. How do you think we achieve that?
I think that it's all coming from the top, the decisions made at the top level.
Yeah.
And we've been focusing on the principles of learning, which are some concepts developed about the way kids learn and how we can best set up the school system to support them. And one specific thing that we've done over the past, as long as I've been on the board, is instructional coaches who work with the teachers, not directly with the students, but with the teachers constantly to make them better teachers, much as you would have a batting coach on a baseball team.
Right.
I think those are some of the aspects that set our school system apart. And as Rick Misenti, the principal of the high school, loves to say, there are 3 things that you need for an excellent school system. It's a great student body, it's the great teaching staff, and it's the support of the community. So once again, we're all in this together.
Excellent. It's just fabulous. Speaking of the challenges, of course, we're faced with budgetary constraints that are going to emanate, we think, from Hartford. We don't know yet. We don't know what the damage will be, but we're expecting significant damage. We've got to face the issues. We understand that we've got to maintain value for the people who live in town. It's impossible, it's incredible to ever represent at this stage to anybody that we can cut taxes or willy-nilly cut taxes or keep it all the same. We would if we could. You know that we would if we could. But in terms of a value proposition, the things that we need to protect really are, we've got to protect the people from the town, from the bad management in Hartford. We've built up, under the Mazza administration, an $8 or $9 million contingency fund. We've hit the nail on the head with this high school when we got it in at the time that we did with state help we never could get before. We've got a AAA bond rating that, given the rate at which we borrowed for those bonds to finance the high school, it's saving us $26 million over the life of the bond. That's brilliant. That's a great foundation. Where do we go from here? I know that talking to, for example, Dr. Freeman, he's aware that something's going to happen, but he wants his hand on the knife so that we maintain value. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
he's there. Now we've got so we're looking at protecting the senior tax freeze. We think that's an important part of our culture, part of the character of town. We've got to maintain that. Years ago, when that came in, it was Joe Mazza that co-wrote that rule. And I believe that by keeping the elderly in their homes and keeping the culture intact, we didn't force them out. We didn't have a flood of new families come in for which we had to provide services, and we're at the point now where we don't have fallow buildings sitting around. Our population has been stable. The student enrollment's been stable, as opposed to other towns around us, and we look forward to attracting new families to town. I know from my business here that we have plenty of people coming into town who are either working in the growing healthcare industry or they're part of the high-tech revolution. And we welcome them, and that's something that we want to continue to push. We need new industries. It's not just about cutting. We're going to cut where we have to. We're going to cut where it makes sense to. We are in constant contact with the leaders of all the departments. But I think that what we've also got to do is grow the grand list from the top. We've got to encourage clean, diversified industry, and we want to work together. One of the things, of course, my guide and mentor is Charles, who's been there and done that. And of course, one of the great things he's been doing, he's been working with town contracts and our suppliers. What can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, Bob has been speaking so much about finances, and I got to say, as someone who's been through some campaigns already, and I know we refer this season to as a silly season, and it's all about tax cuts and that type of thing, but truly, you know, when you're on the Board of Selectmen or even on the Board of Ed, it's more than just dollars and cents. Bob, you know, knows that inside out. That's his career. But we're running a community here. We're not running a for-profit business. This is not a hedge fund where you buy something and sell all the pieces off. This is a community. We are not going to close any schools. We're trying to get the water over to Mulberry. We're doing these things that, you know, people in the community know and need. We have to understand that it is, you know, yes, finances is talked about constantly throughout this season, but it's not about that. It's about the people. It's about, you know, making sure the roads are safe and you know, even in the budget season last time around, we were talking about, you know, some people voted against the budget because we were adding a police officer. We weren't adding a police officer. We're down a couple of policemen already. We were simply trying to maintain it. And that officer was going to be a resource officer, which is an officer in the schools. And that's very, very important. It's like keeping buildings open. That way you have small class sizes, you have neighborhood-based schools, and it makes for what everybody keeps referring to as the quality of life in Guilford. But it's, you know, it takes tough decisions to maintain that over a period of time.
It does. It's all about cooperation. I think it's worth pointing out. We agree. We work well together. We want to maintain the character and culture of our town. We want to keep things moving along as we know them, not to change anything up for the sake of change or cut anything. I've been known to say recently, you know, you can cut rafters and joists out of a house and not hear it make a creak or a sound until it's just too late, until the wheels come, until it just falls apart. You know, there is a time when, you know, when everything looks like a nail if all you have is a hammer. And what I'm suggesting is we've got a full complement of tools and we like to work together. Yeah. I'm excited about the future. I'm very excited about getting this done. I really need your vote. Thank you so much for your support. I'm thrilled and honored to be associated with these two people on our slate. Please come to the primary on September the 12th. Just go to your normal polling station and you just sign in and cast your vote. Is there anything I've missed?
Absentee ballots are available.
Absentee ballots are available. You can get them at Town Hall or contact any one of us.
September 12th, all of the standard polling places. There's no change in any other election.
Right?
Okay, if you need either any questions you have Bob's phone is available. We have websites available. We can answer any questions. We can give you a ride to the polls, whatever you need.
Yeah, by all means. Thank you both.
Thank you, Bob.
And thank you.